see that I didn't really look too bad, but that was only because I'm a very good actor. I think I should be nominated for an Academy Award.
Sometimes when you lie to me, sometimes I'll lie to you. And there isn't a thing they could possibly do. All these half-distorted lies aren't as bad as they seem. And now I sleep blind and I hear people scream. And I wake up and it's just another bad dream. And I can't help myself but feeling sorry. Because I gave up every chance I had. It's not a movement, it's just another fad. Like a cry for help in a world gone mad. I can't help myself by feeling sorry. I know I gave up every chance I had. It's not a movement, it's just another fad. Like a cry for help in a world gone mad.
Hey guys, how's it going? Now, regarding curvature, I don't think most people understand just how serious the problem of curvature is for the status quo. Instead of beating the dead horse of perspective to try to help people understand how and why we see what we see, I thought of a nice little way to visualize just how serious this lack of curvature is for the current spinning ball model. I did this simply by figuring out how big the Earth would need to be in order for there to be such a lack of curvature. The fact is, we can clearly see objects over distances that should not be visible. This is repeated over water or land. We find buildings, ships, mountains, all kinds of landmarks that we should not be able to see, but we do. The problem is that people are confusing the fact that buildings or ships get cut off due to the laws of light propagation and perspective with curvature. They are confusing this with curvature. People are confusing the vanishing point with curvature, and instead of arguing over exactly how many feet of the ship's hull are hidden or at what floor a building might be cut off, instead of looking at it from the same old vantage point, we need to put it into perspective, pardon the pun, to visualize just how much of a problem this lack of curvature is for the spinning ball. The story is that we live on a spinning ball of radius 3,959 miles. Okay, so if that's the case, then over a distance of 20 miles, there will be 266 feet of raw curvature. That's what science tells us. Now, clearly from my shots and the thousands of other tests and shots scattered all over the interweb, the curvature is just not there. You can deny this and claim that buildings and ships disappearing bottom first is due to the curvature, but that is nowhere near enough curvature for the ball Earth. And to prove this, we simply have to calculate how big the Earth would need to be in order for there to be such a lack of curvature. And if the curvature is not in these 20 miles, it will have to be made up exponentially down the line in order to complete the circle. So again, the magical curvature has never been found. I'm sorry if everyone is in denial, but it's just not enough. And I'm going to show you just how big the Earth would need to be in order to have such a lack of curvature. So let's see. Let's use the 20-mile distance to the New Smyrna hotels just to visualize this. Using the Earth curvature site, we get 266 feet of raw curvature. I'm not worrying about the height of the observer at this point. I'm just using raw numbers to give you an idea of the difference in curvature based on the size of the Earth. So we can use the 8 inches times distance squared. We also get 266 feet. But the calculator that I want to focus on uses the sagitta, or the height of the arc of a circle, to also get the same number. And you get 0.05052 miles. Multiply that by 5280 feet, and you end up with 266 feet of curvature that should be there. And for the circle arc calculator, you have to double the distance in question because you are at the top of the arc. The hotel would be 20 miles one way, and to make the total arc length, you need to double that number, so you use 40 miles. This will then give you the height of the arc, or what we refer to as the drop in elevation or curvature over a given distance. So I wanted to focus on this calculator because it will allow us to change the radius of the Earth to see just how big the Earth would need to be in order to get the tiny amount of curvature that people think they are seeing, even though it is easily explained by perspective. If we do this size of Earth analogy, I think it might help everyone realize the seriousness of the lack of curvature. So let's just say that NASA is way off. Even though they have supposedly flown around the equator, let's just say that they are off big time, and that the radius of the Earth isn't 3,959 miles, but that it is double that. Let's assume the Earth is 8,000 miles in radius, a huge monster-sized planet. That is a big difference. So if it were 8,000 miles in radius, how much of a drop in curvature would there be over the same 20 miles? Well, we end up with 0.025 miles, and we multiply that by 5,280 feet, and we get 132 feet of curvature. So even if the Earth were twice as big as it supposedly is, there would still be a heck of a lot of curvature. 132 feet is significant. There's no way there's even that much curvature when I look at those hotels. I can be sitting on my surfboard in the water and still see that much of that hotel 20 miles away, so there's no way there's 132 feet. But what about if we triple the size? If we make the Earth triple its size, having a radius of 12,000 miles, we would still end up with 88 feet of curvature. So that puts it into perspective. In order to have such a lack of curvature, the Earth would need to be closer to triple its current size. That, my friends, is ridiculous, but it allows you to understand just how serious the lack of curvature is. It's not there. You can sit there and argue whether the building is cut off on the second or third floor, or how many feet of the ship's hull are cut off, but the fact of the matter is, there is nowhere near enough curvature in any of these shots that I make or that anyone makes on the internet to justify the dimensions given to us by the controllers, the space agency that claims to have a picture of the entire Earth from the magical land of outer space. In my opinion, the better option is to understand angular resolution and perspective. And not just the angular resolution limit of our eye, but also the limit of light propagation in the visual spectrum. Light travels at a certain wavelength in the visual spectrum, and our eyes are designed to detect that. But light cannot propagate beyond a certain angular limit. It's like a musical string on a guitar or a violin that vibrates. If you put it too close to something, it will hit that and it will not be able to vibrate. And light as well cannot propagate beyond a certain angular limit, just like a musical string. If the light is at too steep of an angle, it will not be able to vibrate as a wave, and it will simply diffract off the ground. So maybe I'll make another video on that topic, but again, I just wanted to quickly point out that the only way we could have such a lack of curvature would be if the Earth were triple its current size. I'm sorry folks, but there's a big problem when it comes to curvature. The Earth is big, but it's not that big. We should be able to see curvature, and not just the horizon. I mean, our eyes are sensitive enough to detect whether the Earth is curving away from us in all directions, which it must do in order to be part of if we are standing on a ball. It's clearly not curving away from us. It's even more obvious from a plane window. But again, you can believe that you live on a spinning ball, but you have to somehow compensate for the lack of curvature, because no one has been able to find it, and if it is not in any of the shots that we are taking, that means that it must be made up, it must be compensated for exponentially down the line in order to complete the circle. So I hope that little analogy is helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good day, everyone. Adios.